Hello friends, my name is Aubrey. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you all here with me today. So today I thought it would be kind of fun to go through the 11 biggest books that I have on my TBR. I was throwing around a number of different ideas for this week's video, but honestly, I just got back from my trip, which was amazing. We went to Boston to visit my brother and his girlfriend, and we spent a day in Salem. We went to the Harry Potter exhibition there. We went to Walden Pond and the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in Concord up there, which was just, it was all amazing and incredible. But I am quite tired and work has been very busy lately, so I figured we would do a little bit of a sort of relaxed video and just, like as I said, go through the biggest books on my TBR. And I'm going to preemptively apologize for my voice. It's been bothering me the last few days since we got home, so hopefully I'm not coming down with anything, but I guess we'll see. But I know that people tend to find bigger books intimidating. I personally don't really have that problem. Like, the length of a book doesn't make me less inclined to read it, except occasionally when it comes to like my available free time. If I'm really busy, I do sometimes pick up smaller books just because I feel like I can devote more attention to them and won't have to read them in like little bits and pieces here and there, and it takes so long to get through it. But I don't mind bigger books. I have read lots of very long books, but I know that people do videos about like, oh, the most intimidating books on my TBR or on my shelves, and we're sort of going to do that today. So what we're going to do is, with these books, we're going to go through each one and talk about if they intimidate me, and if so, why. So I don't know, I just thought it would be kind of fun. And I did set some restrictions for myself when I was going through and choosing these books. Obviously, as I said, they are the 11 biggest books on my TBR, but I'm only including my priority and seasonal TBRs. So if you are familiar with my channel, if you've seen some of my other videos, I do sort my TBR books into 6 different categories. I have books that fit each of the 4 seasons that I feel like I'm going to be more inclined to read during that season, either because they are set during that time of year or the aesthetic or the feeling of the book just reminds me of that season. And then I have my priority and non-priority books. So the priority books are books that I am most excited to read sooner rather than later, if possible. And then my non-priority books are books that maybe they are further along in a series and I haven't gotten to a point where I can get there. Or they're books that I just like, I am excited to read, but less so than the others, which I am trying to prioritize, if that makes sense. So instead of going through all of those, I just went through the books on my priority and seasonal TBRs because those are the ones that I am most likely to read sooner rather than later. Then I also restricted this to not include bind-ups or omnibuses, unless of course one book within that bind-up does match, like does actually reach a length where it is one of the biggest books on my TBR. So for example, the third Legend of Drizzt collection will not be on this list, even though it's quite long, because it is a set of multiple books in the series that have just been bound together. So I feel like that's not quite fair, and so I'm not including those. And then as far as the page count goes, because we are going by page count, because I know that technically word count is determines a more accurate length, because different editions will have different page counts, but it's easier just to do the page count, and that's how I kind of determine where I am in a book, so that's what we're going to use. But as far as the page count goes, I'm not including like appendices or glossaries or anything like that. Just like starting with the very beginning of the story and ending with the very end of the last chapter. So, and as I said, I have 11 books on this list because it ended up being 11 books that broke like the 700 page mark. And so I felt like I should just keep it that way, because I was originally going to do like the top 10 biggest books, but there ended up being 11, so that's what we're going to work with. And we're going to start with the one that is shortest. Shortest is a relative term on this list, and that is The Three Musketeers, which is a book in the D'Artagnan romances. I can't remember what number it is, by Alexander Dumas. Oh, also, another rule that I set for myself, I can only include one book per series. So, like, if there's a series where multiple books in it are on my TBR and would be on this list, I'm only picking the biggest one because otherwise this list would be mainly made up of the Stormlight Archive and the Dandelion Dynasty. And once again, I don't think that's fair. So we are restricting it to one book per series. But anyway, so The Three Musketeers, my edition comes to 700 pages even. And I have read Dumas before. I've read The Count of Monte Cristo, which is longer than this actually, and which is one of my favorite books of all time. I love it so much. I actually was in, I think it was my freshman year of high school or my sophomore year, one of the two. And my teacher for my English honors class had a system where you had to choose books off of her personal bookcase in the classroom and then take tests on them. And depending on the book you chose, the tests were worth different amounts of points. And you had to earn a certain number of points throughout the semester. So I chose the biggest book on her shelf that was worth the most points, and that was The Count of Monte Cristo. And I fell in love with it. It's amazing. So I'm really excited to read more Dumas because I also, The Man in the Iron Mask was one of my favorite movies when I was in like middle and high school. I haven't seen it in years, so I really need to rewatch it. But it is one of the books that is also in the D'Artagnan romances. So I do really, really want to read more of his works. Actually, I think The Three Musketeers might be the first book in this series. I think. I could be wrong, but I think it is. But anyway, so it's, the length doesn't really scare me. It's just that I don't know that I've been in the mood for a classic of this type recently, which is sad because I really do like stories of adventure and heroism and all of that. And so, I don't know, I really do want to read this. I wouldn't say I'm intimidated by it, but I think that you have to be in a certain mood to read some classics sometimes. I don't know if y'all know what I mean. Um, but it is definitely on my list of things that I want to get to soon-ish. I really need to be in the mood for it. Hopefully that will be soon because the more I think about it, the more fun it sounds. I don't know. I am very much looking forward to it, so I guess we'll see when I get to it. But it is the shortest one on this list at 700 pages, which is still quite long, quite a big book. So then we have Defiant, which is the third book in Songs of Chaos by Michael R. Miller, and this book comes to a total of 701 pages, so just a little over The Three Musketeers. I honestly don't know why I haven't gotten to this one yet, because I read the first two books in Songs of Chaos and really, really, really loved them. And then I think what happens to me sometimes with series is I pre-order the next book when it's announced, but then by the time it arrives, I'm reading other things because there is usually a break when it's coming, like when it comes to a new book. Like if the series is currently ongoing, like being written, and I catch up to where it is, during that break between releases, I end up reading other things. And I don't know, I do really need to read this because I really like the characters. Holt and Ash are great. And what's her name? Talia? Yeah, Talia is amazing. I am also really intrigued about some stuff that happened in the second book with like a certain antagonist. And I'm really interested to see where we go from here. Although I did kind of call part of that at, like, I could see it happening as the book went on. But I am really interested to see where it goes. So I do really need to get into this. But this book is like hefty because it's a hardcover, and I don't know, the pages are just kind of thick, so it's like, it's a heavy book. But I think that maybe one of the reasons I haven't gotten into this is, like I said, I've been so busy lately, And I feel like I just haven't been devoting a lot of time to like longer books. Plus, I have been reading a lot of books seasonally. Like, I'm currently reading Ordinary Monsters, which is also quite large. It's like 600 and something pages. But for me, it just feels like a good book to read at this transitionary period between autumn and winter. So I took it with me to Boston and read it on the plane. So it's not that I really haven't been reading a lot of really big books recently, just because, again, because of time. Um, but also having like a set of books in your head that you want to read at a certain time of year can then sometimes mess you up on other books. But I do really want to continue this series, and I know that he's working on book 4 because he sends out like updates. And so I really, really do want to read this. Like, I'm not scared of this at all. It's just a matter of just I haven't gotten to it yet. But I'm really excited because I love a good dragon story. Speaking of dragon stories, the next one that we have is Murtagh. This is the newest book in the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. And this is the deluxe edition. This is the edition that we're going to discuss because it is the one that I'm planning to actually physically read. And this one clocks in at 702 pages. Sorry, I have the page counts written down here so I don't have to keep flipping through the books and trying to find them. I have been so excited for this book for so long. I've told this story in a previous video, but the reason I haven't read it yet is because I pre-ordered the original edition, and then the Broken Binding announced their edition, and I ordered it as well. And by the time they both came in, I was just so busy. Once again, life is just, it's something. I wish we all had more free time to do all the things that we enjoy, honestly. But by the time they came in, I was just so busy. And then by the time I actually decided I was going to read it, they had announced the deluxe edition. And I was like, well, I think this has extra content, so I should wait and read this version. So I pre-ordered it, and it has arrived, and it's beautiful, and I'm so excited. The Inheritance Cycle is one of my favorite series of all time. It means so much to me. I read Aragon literally over 20 times in middle school. And it just is so special to me, and I have been so excited for this. So it's not that I'm scared of it, it's just that I am so determined to be able to enjoy this. And so, now that the deluxe edition is here, my plan is to read this around my birthday. So my birthday is December 10th, and I will be finishing up, like my students will be finishing up exams, so I will be finishing up grading. I think my last exam that I give is actually on my birthday, which is unfortunate, but I'll be finishing up grading by then, and I will have time to devote to this as it deserves, and just time to be excited, because I know that once I start this, I'm not going to want to put it down and have to do life stuff. So I'm just so excited to read it. Like, I don't know. It's just, like I said, the Inheritance Cycle means so much to me, and I'm ecstatic that he is continuing writing in this world because it makes me so happy. So there's this one. I'm not intimidated by it at all. It's like a level of excitement that I cannot describe to you. But it's almost like this anxiety of like, I want to make sure that I have the proper amount of time and focus to enjoy it the way that I want to. So this one will be read within the next month. Yes. This next book does actually intimidate me a little bit, not so much because of the length, but just because I've learned more about it, and I'm scared I'm not gonna like it as much as I hoped. But that is Empire of the Vampire, which is the first book in the series of the same name by Jay Kristoff, and this one clocks in at 734 pages. So, big book. It does have a lot of illustrations in it, though, but it's just too much effort to try to, like, subtract the number of illustrations from the number of pages, so I'm not going to. They count. Because I spend time literally poring over illustrations in books. It takes me so much longer to read manga than you would think it would, because I love art, and I'm, like, looking at all the little details in the panels, so illustrations count for me. But I've heard a lot of praise about this from some people. Like Andrew Watson absolutely loves it. I think Mike from Mike's book reviews enjoys it as well, if I'm remembering correctly. But I don't know. Jay Kristoff's writing style scares me. I am afraid it's gonna be too grungy for me, which is a weird thing to say because it's not that I don't like darker books, but I don't know how to describe it. I'm just afraid that I'm not going to enjoy his writing style, and this book has been so hyped up as such a wonderful vampire story. I really want to like it, but I'm scared to read it because I'm scared I'm not going to like it. And it is quite long, and devoting that much time to something that I'm afraid I'm not going to like. So I guess the length does play into this. Because I'm worried about it, the length makes it scarier. Because, like, if it was half the size and I was like, oh, well, I can just read it, and if I don't absolutely love it, it's okay. But it's so long, and I'm so worried I'm not going to love it as much as I hoped. I do still think I'll like it. I'm hopeful. I am being positive. It's just that I keep telling myself I'm going to read it this fall, I'm going to read it this fall, and I haven't yet. So yeah, this one does scare me a little bit just because I'm afraid I'm not going to like it as much as I want to. But hopefully I will. If you've read it, please let me know what you think of it because I really need more people to hype me up on it to convince me to actually read it. Alright, this next book I know like nothing about, but I bought it on a whim at a used bookstore for really, really cheap. Even cheaper than normal because it is missing the dust jacket, but that is The Glass Books of the Dream Eaters. This is the first book in the Glass Books series by Gordon Dahlquist. And I will say, I'm really sad it doesn't have the dust jacket because I've seen pictures of it looking it up online to get series information, and it's so cool looking. But this one is 760 pages long. And it is the first, and I think it's a trilogy. I think there are 2 more books in the series. I really don't know anything about it, but the kind of vibe I got from the covers of the books, like I said when I looked up the series, it reminds me of like a diviner, fortune teller, mind reader, mystical kind of feeling, I guess. I don't know. I really know like nothing about it, and I think that's probably why I haven't read it yet, although looking at the covers makes me really want to try it. It sounds like it looks, I can't say sounds because I've heard not really anything about it, but it looks cool. I'm pretty sure it's fantasy, and it looks like it's just gonna be weird and whimsical, and I'm into it, I guess. But like I said, I just don't really know anything about it. So I think that's probably why I haven't read it yet. But it intrigues me enough that I want to. I really do wish I had the dust jacket. I'll put like a picture up of it. It just looks really cool. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one. It's just, I think, a matter of I just don't know that much about it, and so it hasn't, like when I'm picking out a book to read, it just hasn't drawn me in because I don't know what to think or to expect. So with this next one, we're going to break 800. So we have the first binding, which is the first book in the Tales of Tremaine by R.R. Verdi, and this one is 817 pages. It's hefty. And I don't know why I haven't read this one yet. It is really long. It is very long. And again, I like reading long books, especially long fantasy books, so that's not a bad thing for me. But I guess I don't know. I really think a lot of this just comes down to time and like mental fortitude of being like, can I devote enough time to this? I've mentioned before in videos that I have migraines, and my migraines have been increasing in frequency within the last few years, which is not fun and does actually take away from time to do things like read, because if you have migraines, you understand you don't really feel like doing much of anything when you get a bad one. And I mean, they can come in different levels of intensity, but reading is much more difficult when you have a headache. So there's that. But this one does seem really cool. I know a lot of people compare it to The Name of the Wind, which is the first book in the King Killer Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss, which I really enjoyed. So, and I've heard, like, Patrick Leo says that he's heard a lot of criticism because of that similarity, but he thinks that it is different enough that like this can stand on its own. And I know the second book is out now as well, which also has a beautiful cover. So I do really want to read this one. I also feel like one thing that happens to me sometimes, especially lately, is if a series only has one book out, I feel almost less inclined to pick it up because I'm like, I'm going to have to wait for the next book. And that's fine. I mean, I've spent my whole life doing that, reading series that are ongoing and waiting for books to come out. And it doesn't prevent me from buying the first book in the series because I do think I'm going to like it. So I feel like I'm still, supporting the author by purchasing the first book. I'm not just like making them not get paid because they haven't, put out the second book. But it does almost make me like I want to read it, but I also want to know what's going to happen after, if that makes sense. I don't know. But it does sound really, really cool. It has a beautiful cover. I really don't have a reason. I just noticed there's something on the cover. This was a used copy. I don't really have a reason why I haven't read it. It is really long. Like, you could do some damage with this. Although it's like not as heavy as you would expect for such a long book. I don't know. But I do love fantasy. I love following a single character and seeing their motivations and their lives and who they are as a person. So I really think I'm going to love this. It's just I need to devote some time to it. Then the next one we have is Dragon Mage. This is the first book in Riven World by M.L. Spencer, and this one is 818 pages. Again, I don't know why I haven't read this. Maybe big books have been just kind of putting me off lately. Not because I don't enjoy them, but like I said, just because of time. Oh, it's got illustrations in it. I didn't even know that. Where was it? Look at that. It's illustrated. Oh my gosh, what a pleasant surprise. I love it when books include illustrations. But anyway, this is Dragon Fantasy. I do know that this one has been out for a little while. And the second book has not come out. Okay, it came out in 2020, which is like 4 years ago now. And I don't know if there's any word on the second book. But again, I've heard a lot of people like this. Patrick Leo loves it. And it's Dragon Fantasy. And I need to just read it. But it's so heavy. Like, this one actually is really heavy. I don't know. I don't know why I haven't read it. I just need to. I just need to read it. I have said in my last video, which was the end of your book tag, that one of my goals for 2025 is to stop putting series off and just read them. Because I think one of my problems, especially with these really long books in series, like that start off a new series, is that I feel like I'm in the middle of so many series already that I haven't completed, either that are ongoing or that I'm just not caught up on. That I like hesitate when I go to start a new series. I'm so excited for it, and then I think to myself, man, but this book is so big and I already have so many series I'm in the middle of. Like, do I really need to start such a large series? Because if the first book is anything to go by, like, subsequent books tend to get longer more often than they get shorter. And so, but I've decided that that's silly. That's a silly reason to not read what I want to read. Like, I should just do it. I should just read the books that I want. And so hopefully this will be a book that I get to maybe next year, because that is a goal of mine, is to start the series that I want to start, despite whether or not I'm in the middle of other series or not. So some of these longer first books in series will hopefully be tackled pretty soon. Yes. But it is. Like, when I say this book is heavy, I'm not exaggerating. It's like a paperback, and I feel like you could, like, knock somebody out with this. Like, that's crazy. Okay, now we're into the top 4. So we have To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which is the first book in Fractalverse, again by Christopher Paolini. This is his sci-fi series, and this one comes in at 825 pages. Why have I not read this? I don't know. I like sci-fi in theory. Like, I really enjoy a good sci-fi movie, but I haven't read a ton of sci-fi books, and I feel like I just don't tend to gravitate towards them. Although I like sci-fi. Like, I love Star Wars, love Star Trek, but I don't know. I don't know why I haven't read this. I really need to read this, especially because it's Christopher Paolini. And again, The Inheritance Cycle is one of my favorite series ever. So I really need to try his other series, his sci fi series. I guess, like I said, I don't tend to be drawn in. Like when I'm thinking of what I want to read, this one just doesn't jump out at me, I suppose. But I do really want to try it. Okay, let me just say that going through, and I already was aware of this because I like to try to guess how long books are based on how they look because it's funny when it's like so unexpected. Because sometimes books can be very deceiving in their appearance as to their length. Because, like, Dragon Mage and To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, you would think this book was longer, and it's not. And this one's even a hardback, but it's just like the binding and the paper that they use. But there were some surprises when I was making this list. Let me just say that. But this one is like not nearly as heavy. It has a beautiful cover. Like that's lovely. But I do really need to try this. I do, especially since the second book I think is a novella, maybe is out. So I do need to try it. I need to just do it. I just need to. All right, so now we're at the top three, and this next one is not a sci-fi or a fantasy, it is historical fiction, and that is The Pillars of the Earth. This is the first book in Kingsbridge by Ken Follett, and it is 973 pages, so almost hitting 1,000. Does it have illustrations? It does. Oh my gosh. Look at how pretty. I love architecture, and like architectural illustrations are just, I feel like, perfect for this book because I know it's about the building of a cathedral. Um, and Mike from Mike's book reviews. Why can I not say his channel name? Mike from Mike's Book Reviews really loves this book, and I just need to try it. I do enjoy a good historical fiction. I do think this one, the length does intimidate me just a little bit, just because I know that it spans a number of years. Um, I'm trying to see if it says how long. It doesn't. It does say it takes place in the 12th century, but I feel like it's gonna make me sad at times. I don't know. I don't know, but I've heard it's just so good, and I know that there's like so many books in the series. And I think again, part of it is just starting a series of books that are so long. As I said, has not been something I've been doing lately because I have been trying to just cut down on the series I'm in the middle of, and I'm like, if I start a series that's this long, it's just gonna add more and it's gonna be on there for a while. But that's a silly reason to not read it. I just need to do it because I mean, Ken Follett I've heard is just a fantastic writer, and I love architecture. I love historical fiction. Um, I love these sort of like, would 12th century be medieval? I don't know. I'm not very good at like historical periods and knowing when they start and end, but I really like those sort of like old medieval dark ages, um, like pre-modernity type settings in historical fiction. So I don't know. I really wanna see what this is about, and I feel like it's gonna be very character focused, even though it is about the building of a cathedral. I think I've heard that his character work is very good. So I just need to try it. I just need to read it. I keep saying that for all of these, but it's true. But this one, I think, like I said, the length does scare me just a little bit. Not really scare me, but just does make me feel a little anxious just because I don't know. I just don't know what's going to happen in this book. I don't know. But I am excited to read it. I just need to actually do it. Okay, and for the last two books on this list, we are moving back into fantasy, and both of these books have broken the 1,000-page mark. So the first one we have is Speaking Bones. This is the fourth and final book in the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, and it is 1,045 pages. As I said, all of the books in this series are really long, but we're restricting it to one book per series because otherwise it would just overtake this list. Um, I really want to read this so much, but I feel like I want to just read all four books back to back. And because of that, the length increases dramatically. Because as I said, they're all very long. They're not all 1,045 pages. This is the longest book in the series, but they are all very long. And I want to read them together, I think. So that actually does scare me just a little bit because I'm like, that's a lot of time to spend in one world. Which again is not bad. I mean, Timur is 9 books. Lord of the Rings is large, although it's not this large because these are 4 books of very long length. Harry Potter is 7 books. I don't have the Lycanius trilogy is huge. I don't have a problem with long series. I just feel like it almost makes me just a little bit nervous to start it because I'm like trying to plan out the time that I can then devote to 4 books that are really, really chunky. It's just literally a lot of this just comes down to time. It really does because I have been excited to read this for a while. Patrick Leo, this is one of his favorite series of all time, I think, and everyone else that I've heard read it and discuss it has loved it as well. So I just need to do it. It's just literally a matter of figuring out when I feel up to devoting that much time to a single series all at once. So yeah, again, it's not that the length scares me. It's literally just the time available. When do I have the time available to devote to this as it deserves? I guess that makes more sense. So the length is part of that, but it's not that the length scares me. Like I said, I don't mind reading big books. It's just time lately has been a stressor for me, if you can't tell. So, okay, moving on to the 11th and final book on this list. You might be able to guess what it is. It is Oathbringer. This is the 3rd book in the Stormlight Archive, which is one of the series in The Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. This book is huge. It is also illustrated, which is fantastic, but it's huge. It's like so heavy. And I got the box set of the Stormlight Archive, like the first 4 books. And let me tell you, picking up that box set, like picking up the box with all 4 books in it, it's a struggle. It's really heavy. But Oathbringer is the longest book in the Stormlight Archive so far, although I feel like Wind and Truth, book 5, which is coming out in December, is probably going to be longer. But for now, this is the one from that's representing that series. And it comes in at 1,233 pages. So the reason I haven't gotten to this one yet, this doesn't really scare me. I just have only just started my Cosmere read. And I've mentioned before, I like to read series in publication order. I know that there are a lot of like recommended reading orders for people for all kinds of different series, the Cosmere included, but for me personally, I just like to start where the author started and go from there because then I like to see how they tie things in together and what clues they're adding in. And as it is developed by the author, that's how I like to enjoy it. So I just haven't gotten here yet because the only Cosmere book I've read so far is Elantris, which is the first one that Brandon Sanderson published. And haven't been able to continue because I need to get a copy of Arcanum Unbounded because one of these stories in that collection comes next. And then I can read Era 1 of Mistborn and just keep going from there. So this is just a matter of like, I haven't gotten here yet, but I am 110% determined to continue the Cosmere, so I will get here eventually. And so many people praise the Cosmere in general and the Stormlight Archive specifically. I'm like sad that I didn't start this series way sooner so I could have potentially been caught up in time for Wind and Truth because I feel like everyone is so excited, which is wonderful, but everyone's going to be just all over that book next month and I'm not going to be able to participate because I'm not even close to being there yet. But it is what it is, and I'm still very excited to continue my journey through the Cosmere. So this is the biggest book on my TBR currently. It's heavy as heck. It's huge, and I will get to it eventually. All right, so those are the 11 biggest books on my TBR going by page count. That's a lot of pages. That's a lot of pages when you think about it, especially when you think about how some of these are, quite a few of these are books in series, which just adds on so much more. Um, I just wish I had so much more time to devote to reading. But unfortunately, I am not independently wealthy, so I do have to have a job. Um, but yeah, I just, I'll get to, I do plan to get to all of them, hopefully some of them sooner rather than later. And I don't know, how do you feel about big books? Because, like I said, the length is not the problem. It's just sometimes I feel like I don't have the time to really spend on them. And I know that that sounds like people might be thinking, well, that is the length. That's what it is. But it's not really, because I don't have a problem with spending a lot of time in a series. It's just when I have the time to do so. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think of big books. Like, are you more drawn to them? Do they intimidate you because of the length? Are you more like me, where like you enjoy reading a big book? It's just like you need the time to do it. Um, but I would love to hear what you think. If you've read any of these, please let me know what you thought of them. Just please keep your comments spoiler free. But I would love to know if you think I should prioritize some of these over others. If you're now excited to read any of these, or what, let me know what big books you have on your TBR. Because I'm always looking for book recommendations, even though, as you can see, I have a lot to read. It's a problem. But yeah, or if you want to leave an emoji, let's do a book stack emoji for today, since these are huge stack of books. Like, literally, it's 11 books, and it's reaching up past the tops of my thighs from the floor. So it's big. It's a big stack of books. So if you want to leave an emoji just with your comment, or if you just want to let me know that you were here and you don't really have anything else to say, you can pop an emoji down there. I really love talking to you guys in the comments. It genuinely makes my day. So yeah, I hope that this was fun. And I hope that you are all having a wonderful day or a wonderful night wherever you are. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!